Dynamic Duel podcast, where we review superhero films and debate the superiority between Marvel and DC by comparing their characters in stat-based battle simulations. I'm Johnny DC.
And I'm his twin brother, Marvelous Joe.
And this is the episode where we review Deadpool 2.
It's a pretty good film. It's bigger than the first. It's funnier than the first.
Ryan Reynolds embodies Deadpool.
Right, yeah. Overall, you have to get our overall thoughts on it later on in this episode, because before we get into the review, we're going to go ahead and go into the news from the past week.
Yeah, in this episode, news-wise, we're going to be talking about Jake Gyllenhaal is apparently in talks to play Mysterio.
The news really is that Mysterio is going to be the villain in the next Spider-Man movie.
And then we're also going to be talking about a new television series based on Alfred Pennyworth, Batman's butler.
Oh my god.
Which is coming out from the Gotham showrunner.
Can you believe it?
No, we'll get into it.
All right.
Jinx, you owe me a cook. We're also going to be talking about how Marvel Studios has hired screenwriters for an Eternals film.
Right, and that was a property that was just rumored to be in development by Marvel, and with the news that they've hired screenwriters, it looks like it's, officially in pre-development. So we'll talk about what we expect from that franchise.
Yeah. But before we get into that, just a quick heads up that our Patreon bonus content that we'll be releasing this Thursday is another quick draw.
It's a quick draw. Yeah, we're going to find out we did find out who won in a fight between Samus Aran
from the Metroid
Metroid video games and Master Chief from the Halo video games.
Right.
We plug in the same stats that we do for all of our duel episodes, and Jonathan's going to go ahead and drop a quick sketch of the winner.
Right.
And let you know how many times that character won out of 1,000 simulated matches.
Right. It's a video that we post to our Patreon page.
That video is going to come out May 24th, and it's going to be archived June 24th. So if you want to go ahead and check that out, go ahead and make sure you sign up for our Patreon before June 24th to see that.
Right. It's only $2 a month for that and our other weekly bonus content that we release every Thursday.
Yeah, and if you pay $5 a month, you get access to the entire back archive of bonus content that we produce. And you can check us out on Patreon by visiting patreon.com/Dynamic Duel. So go ahead and do that.
Yeah, and also just a reminder, next Thursday's bonus content is our special call-in episode that we'll be doing.
Yeah, we set up a special call-in line with the phone number 303-736-9963, and we really encourage you guys to go ahead and give that number a call and leave us a voicemail. Don't be afraid, no one's actually going to pick up that line because I have it going straight to voicemail. So go ahead and give us a call and tell us your thoughts, your questions, who you think would win in a fight between this and this, what you thought of this movie, just things like that. It would be great to hear from you guys. And what we'll do is we'll go ahead and record a bonus episode that we'll release on May 31st, in which we play your recordings and go ahead and address them, whether it's a question or comment or whatever.
Yeah, I think we've already received a few drunk calls. So it should be an entertaining episode. It'll be fun.
Yeah, please don't call us when you're drunk. If you even have a few moments, go ahead and hit pause and dial, again, 303-736-9963 and leave us a message.
And if you do check out our Patreon page, you'll notice that we have a goal going on right now to reach 25 patrons.
Yes.
At which point we can mail out physical copies of our prizes to the winners.
Right.
And it's something we've always wanted to do because right now we just give out a digital award. We post it to our social media accounts. So
speaking of no prize,
it's no prize time. So a no prize is an award that Marvel used to give out up until the 90s to fans. It was an empty envelope, which was the joke. Our version, the Dynamic Duel No Prize, is a digital award that we post on social media that we personally draw for those who we feel gave the best answer to our question of the week.
Yes.
Last week's question was, what is your favorite storyline from the comics that hasn't yet been used in a Marvel or DC film that absolutely needs to be?
This is almost a horrible question because we got so many good answers for this, it became impossible to choose.
It's like trying to choose my favorite between my two children.
Yeah, exactly. Like every answer that we got is indeed a story arc that should be made into a film, we feel. So at that point, it almost felt like we were choosing between like which storyline is better, this or this. And it really depends on, the character that you're talking about or whatever. So it was really hard to choose. But in the end, we each chose one.
Yeah.
Even though we wish we could give it to everybody. But Mike Cusick wins on the Marvel side for answering with the House of M. I picked the House of M in the end out of things like Kraven's Last Hunt and Annihilation and Maximum Carnage and things like that. All great answers, but I went with House of M because I would like to see that be used in some sort of fashion to introduce mutants into the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Yeah, I think that is the one that gets me most excited out of all the rest. Although I would really love to see Annihilation, just since, you know, Marvel seems to be going more cosmic these days. Kraven's Last Hunt really needs to be made into a film. But yeah, House of M was the one I'm giving the award to because it'll be the perfect bridge between the X-Men and the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
Yeah, so because of Scarlet Witch, she's already established.
Right, exactly.
And it kind of deals with like altering reality so that mutants do exist or don't exist.
Yeah, you could play with it. You could take it a few different ways.
So I want to give my half of the award to Ken Johnson, who mentioned the War of Light, specifically the Blackest Night storyline from the Green Lantern comics, written by Jeff Johns. It is cosmic in scale. It involves everyone from the DC universe. It involves zombies. It is just a fantastic storyline. It's our Infinity War. It's our Infinity Gauntlet storyline.
Yeah.
Because, you know, it involves...
You would have to build to that over the course.
You would absolutely have to build to that. Because there's no use in showing, like, a zombie Superman or a zombie Wonder Woman unless you had already established, you know, Superman and Wonder Woman.
It has zombies in it?
Yeah, the Black Lanterns are zombies. So basically anyone who died previously in DC Comics came back as a zombie. Then they went out and killed other superheroes who then came back as zombies. It's like Game of Thrones or like The Walking Dead. It's like just unlimited number of superhero zombies. It's insane. It's awesome. It needs to be made.
Interesting.
I think it would just be a blast to see. It's the greatest Green Lantern story I think that's ever been made, and it encompasses the entire universe. Other storylines that people brought up included The Long Halloween, Identity Crisis, which I really liked the answer. And of course, my answer from last week was Kingdom Come, and a few people brought that up. I would love to see that as well.
Yeah. So special congrats to Mike Cusick and Ken Johnson for winning the No Prize. Yep. We also want to give a special shout out to Adam Spees from the Blast from Our Past podcast, Brendan Wright, Joel Seagrave, Chad Menard, Rick Story, Jay Horsley of the Spoiler Country podcast, George Cornetis, and Tim Brown for also giving their answers.
And thanks to anyone else who we may have missed.
Yeah, I'm sure we may have missed someone there. Let's get on to the news. So we learned today that Jake Gyllenhaal is in talks to play Mysterio in the Spider-Man Homecoming sequel. We learned that from Deadline, I believe. And the way that some trades were reporting on it, it sounds like he may have actually already gotten the role. Like this is far advanced talks at the very least.
It's so heartbreaking. I'm so heartbroken.
Why?
Not that I wanted him to be Batman, which he's been rumored to be for a long time, but I just think he's a phenomenal actor, and I wanted him to be a part of the DC universe. You know, he's been rumored to be a part of the DC universe for a while, and I guess Marvel as well, because he was almost Spider-Man.
Yeah, for a while when Tobey Maguire hurt his back while filming Seabiscuit, he was almost not going to be in the Spider-Man sequel, Sam Raimi's Spider-Man 2. And Jake Gyllenhaal was basically in the wings on standby to go ahead and take the role if Tobey Maguire was not able to do it.
And I remember like when they were still doing casting for Batman Begins, I know that it was down to like Cillian Murphy, Jake Gyllenhaal, and Christian Bale.
Oh, really?
So he was almost Batman as well.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he's been, close to playing a superhero for a long time now.
Which is why I'm surprised that he went with Mysterio.
A villain?
Yeah, because Mysterio doesn't need to have a superhero physique or anything like that.
Right. Well, if you remember from the comics, and you may remember this also from the profile that I did on Mysterio back in our Mysterio versus Scarecrow duel episode.
From last
Halloween, yeah. The way Mysterio presented himself in that first comic where he fought Spider-Man was as a superhero named Mysterio. Like, he presented himself as almost like a Doctor Strange type, even though it was all special effects and illusions.
Right.
So for those that may not know, the character of Mysterio is a Spider-Man villain who employs the use of special effects because he was a special effects wizard from the film industry.
It was like computer-generated illusions.
Yeah, and he felt like he wasn't getting enough recognition from the industry, so he decided the best way to gain recognition would be to take down a superhero. So he kind of adopted the guise of his own superhero to discredit Spider-Man and take him down.
Yeah.
And then it was all revealed in the end to be a bunch of trickery. He didn't actually have any real powers. It was all just illusions.
Are you excited that Mysterio is going to be the
You
villain?
know, I really like Mysterio, honestly. I think he's an underrated villain. He has such potential for amazing spectacle in a film. Like, the way they use him in video games is amazing. He's like the best video game villain you could have because you could do almost anything with him, you know? And I think what they could do with him in the movies, it's unlimited. There's unlimited potential right there. You could go like as crazy as Doctor Strange, like the Doctor Strange otherworldliness of like Dormammu or something like that. You can do stuff like that with Mysterio.
I remember you saying during your profile during that episode that he essentially could, or at least give the appearance that he could do anything.
Right.
So I bet the trailers for this movie are going to be off the hook. They're just going to be insane.
Yeah.
Because you could take it anywhere. You could take it anywhere from like ancient Egypt to outer space to underwater kingdoms and anywhere.
Yeah, and that's why this news excites me. Honestly, I would have probably preferred Kraven's Last Hunt.
I hate Kraven.
Kraven? No,
I don't get Kraven at all.
He's awesome. But I think, this is exciting too. Though I think like Kraven and Mysterio and Scorpion, those are like the last three big Spider-Man villains that we haven't got, like classic villains.
I've always liked Scorpion.
Yeah. And we saw a hint of Scorpion in the last film, but apparently he's going to be the villain in the Silver Sable, Black Cat, Silver and Black movie, which I don't know if even that's still happening because we haven't heard any news on that in a while.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm excited by this.
I guess Mysterio isn't going to be the only villain in the film because apparently we also learned today that the Vulture will be back for the next one.
Right, yeah. Michael Keaton will be reprising his role as Adrian Toomes at the very least, if not the Vulture, in the sequel. So, yeah, he's going to play some part in that. I don't know if that's going to involve working with Mysterio from prison, like sending him some tech or something like that to employ his special effects or something.
Yeah.
I don't know. But, yeah, we'll see how that goes. It may just be one villain, but
I think once you go Mysterio, how do you ever top that?
Visually, you don't really.
I don't think you can.
Maybe you take it smaller, like with Kraven in the next film. Come on, Kraven! I just really want to see Kraven.
I don't get it.
Well, that's because you don't know the character because you're a DC dork. I think that does it for that news. Again, I'm glad that Jake Gyllenhaal chose the winning team with Marvel and that he's finally going to be in a superhero film. But that brings us to our question of the week. What actor that hasn't had a starring role in a comic book film is past due to star in one? Now, Jake Gyllenhaal would have been at the top of this list, but he's just got removed from that.
Probably as a hero. This could be a hero or a villain.
Yes. Yep. Hero or a villain. Just any actor needs to be in a comic book film.
For me, I'm going to have to give this one some thought because I would have automatically just said Jake Gyllenhaal.
Yeah.
So, post your answer to our Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, or email us at dynamicduelpodcast@gmail.com. We'll pick our favorite answer and draw that person a Dynamic Duel No Prize that we'll post to social media.
Who do you think would be in the wings to replace Ben Affleck if Ben Affleck decides not to do the Batman sequel now that Jake Gyllenhaal won't be able to do that?
Oh, wow. That's a good question. I know John Hamm was rumored.
Oh.
I don't know, but he's getting older as well. I don't know. John Hamm. I'm just going to go with John Hamm.
Okay. Good answer.
So, speaking of Batman, Alfred Pennyworth is getting his own 10-episode series on Epix, which I have two questions about that. First one is, why? And the second one is, what the hell is Epix?
It's a cable channel that no one watches, apparently?
I don't have cable. I have an Apple TV. I've never heard of it. I don't know how I'm going to see this. I don't know if I want... Why is this a thing? It's the joke. It's the joke that was from the Teen Titans Go trailer. The last one where they had the Alfred movie. And it's just so ridiculous, but it's like prophetic. It's an actual thing now. Not a movie, but why is it a TV show?
I think some network executive was horribly misguided somewhere along the way, where they just think that, these guys will just watch anything superhero related, apparently. Which isn't the case, as some execs learned from Powerless.
Yeah.
Or Inhumans or something like that. And I'm not saying that this is going to be a bad show. It's just a show that no one asked for it.
No one asked for it. And that's the thing, is that they keep feeding us content that we're not asking for. I don't understand the approach, I guess. Yeah. And don't get me wrong, like, I've always sort of been curious about Alfred Pennyworth's backstory.
Yeah.
Just, him being like a spy and, and stuff like that, working for the British intelligence service.
Yeah.
But another part of me just doesn't care that much.
Is it going to be like James Bond, do you think?
I mean, it could be. It could be. But then it's going to be kind of weird to see like James Bond's journey to becoming a butler. You know? Yeah, I don't get it.
Yeah. Do you think we should set up a Alfred versus Jarvis?
Yes.
Butler fight?
Yes.
Duel episode like this Christmas or
Absolutely.
sometime later
I'm not sure when this is coming out, but we absolutely need to do that. But yeah, that'll be our Christmas episode.
Alfred
maybe.
could have a broom.
Uh-huh.
But Jarvis gets to fight with a silver food platter that he gets to use as like a shield.
Dude, bring it on.
And he
Bring it on.
He can throw it and slice Alfred right in half. It's going to be awesome. Can't wait for that duel episode, which we're only half serious about, but probably will
It'll
end up
probably
happening.
happen. It'll probably
eventually.
happen.
Yeah. Does that do it for that news?
Oh, no. So one other big aspect of this news is that it's from the Gotham showrunner, the television show, Bruno Heller.
Bruno Heller?
And yet, it's not tied in with that show. It's its own thing.
They keep like creating all these like different Elseworlds series.
Right.
I don't know how I feel about that.
I'm just wondering why they're not making it a part of Gotham. Like, why not? You already have the actor.
Oh, yeah.
You've worked with the character. I don't know. So many questions. I can't. I don't want to talk about it anymore. What's the next topic?
So Marvel Studios has hired the screenwriters for their Eternals film, which is reportedly now officially in development. At first it was just a rumor, but they hired writers Matthew and Ryan Firpo, who haven't done a lot of mainstream work, but they are blacklist writers. Their script, I think it was called Ruin, that was at the top of the 2017 blacklist. The blacklist being a list of scripts that were popular circulating around Hollywood, but were never picked up for development.
Right.
So they're kind of hot commodities right now. Hopefully it's good. I mean,
Yeah, I have to wonder if... Okay, so you know how they didn't announce Civil War until after Warner Brothers announced Batman v Superman.
Right.
And one of the reasons Kevin Feige was like, hey, let's do Civil War was because Batman v Superman was coming out.
Right.
I have to wonder if they're like, hey, let's do an Eternals film because we know that Ava DuVernay is doing the New Gods film.
Right. That's a good question because they're essentially dealing with kind of like the same subject matter. They're both creations of Jack Kirby, the Eternals and the New Gods from DC. I hope they don't feel too similar. Honestly, I'm not kind of like the whole Alfred Pennyworth show. I never asked for an Eternals film.
You never asked for a Guardians of the Galaxy film either.
That's true, but there was a lot of potential there from the comics. I've never really read a great Eternals comic personally.
I know that Neil Gaiman had that pretty good run, or at least like, you know, people talked about it.
And maybe that's what they'll be adapting here. I'm not sure, but like it didn't have a whole lot of like lasting, iconic, memorable characters. And usually, like if I have to think, like if you're gonna go this route and go with the Eternals, which is, you know, a race of immortal beings that live on the planet Titan that were originally from Earth. Thanos is one of them. He's an Eternal. I would prefer to see an Inhumans film comparatively.
The Inhumans had their chance.
Yeah, I mean, but I still want to see a film of them. And the show got canceled. You know, you could just kind of erase that whole thing from continuity, I think. But like the Eternals, the Inhumans were genetically engineered humans. The Inhumans were created by genetic experimentation by the Kree. The Eternals were created by genetic experimentation by the Celestials, which is a race of godlike alien. They're
beings.
Mysterious. Yeah, they're beings. They're huge giants. And they're the ones that kind of facilitated evolution on Earth. And I get into this a little bit in the Thanos versus Darkseid duel episode. But the first experiment went awry and created deviants, which is like this race of monsters on Earth. And then they created the Eternals, which is like this race of perfect superpowered beings to fight the deviants on Earth.
Right.
And they ended up living on Titan. They're all pretty much Superman, but with telepathy. They could do a few other things too. Like they specialize in their own little power sets. Like some of the more memorable Eternals characters out there are
Star Fox.
Like Star Fox.
Thanos' brother.
That's Thanos' brother. Yeah, you know, his specialty is using empathy powers to get people to experience emotions that he wants them to feel. There's Cersei, who can transmute elements. There's Icarus, who's pretty much Superman. Mentor is the leader of the Titans. There are so many of them. It's such like a deep but not necessarily interesting backstory.
There's rumors that one of them is going to appear in the next Avengers film, Avengers 4.
Again, I don't know. I'd rather see a Fantastic Four property be developed over this if they get the rights to that.
What's the current rumor?
I'm hoping like this is kind of like the type of property that they're developing just in case they don't get the rights to the X-Men and the Fantastic Four. I hope that if they do get those rights, whenever that's announced, that they kind of drop this and decide to focus more on that, because those are more interesting characters that I want to see stories about. done right in the Marvel Cinematic Universe proper.
Yeah.
So we'll see what happens with this as further news develops. But I think that does it for all the news this episode. So let's go ahead and get into our review of Deadpool 2. All right, Deadpool 2. If you haven't seen the film, all of our reviews are spoiler episodes. So if you haven't seen the film, don't listen to this review without seeing the film first.
There's so many surprises in this film. It's a disservice, I think, to listen to our review without seeing it.
Yeah, there are a surprising number of surprises in this film. That's one of the great things about it. Overall, I had a really good time with this film, and there are some criticisms to be had that we'll get into and talk about, but I want people to know right at the top that I don't want those negative vibes to give the impression that I didn't like this film.
Yeah, it was good. It was funny. I liked it.
In some ways, the Deadpool films are above criticism because they're a lampoon of the genre and aren't meant to be taken so seriously.
Right.
Like these type of films, like Lego Batman and to some extent Punisher Warzone, are hard to review because they're enjoyed on a different level. People will just say, fuck you, I enjoyed the film.
Who cares?
Yeah, exactly. So I think a good place to start is to compare Deadpool 2 to the first one. I think overall, not as good as the first one. Because the first one was so great.
It set the expectations so high.
Yeah, I mean, this one was bigger and funnier, but I think the story was a little bit more uneven. However, this one did succeed in places where the previous one failed. The problems that I had with the first movie, which you can revisit in our review of the first Deadpool film back when that film came out in February of 2016. That was like our third episode ever.
Yeah.
The problems I had were that despite being a well-made film that was a very accurate depiction of the character from the comics, it had a lack of gravitas and somewhat shallow motivations of the main character.
Right.
This film had gravitas. It had so much emotional weight in that first 20 minutes that I found myself like slunk in my chair, just, beside myself with grief.
Yeah.
And Deadpool's motivation here was so much better than just wanting to look hot again. He wanted to get his, quote, heart in the right place so he could see Vanessa again when he died, And congrats to the writers for bringing that depth to the story.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
This story, some parts were really great, like that first 20 minutes. But it was a roller coaster, both tonally and in terms of quality. Like, I really liked that first part up until when we leave the X-Mansion. And then at that point, like, I felt like it dipped when we were going through like the prison scene and things like that.
Yeah.
But then it really picked up for me again with the X-Force and, the armored convoy action scene.
Yeah.
But then the final set piece at the Essex home kind of dipped for me again. So it was weird.
Yeah.
Structurally.
Yeah, definitely. It almost had like two first acts.
I could see that because like the first act kind of ended when Deadpool is hugging Colossus and he realizes that he needs to work with him to get his heart in the right place. That's when he has his goal.
Right.
But it also had another first act at the end of the prison scene where he dies in the ice water and he goes to Vanessa and he realizes, his goal needs to be to protect the kid. And that's when, it goes into the second act when he recruits X-Force and things like that. So yeah, two first acts. It was like a 4-act structure, which structurally made it feel a little weird. It just didn't hold up quite as well as the first movie. Where this film didn't succeed, along with the first film, was with its villain. I found Ajax in the first film to be rather bland and generic, and in this film, it felt like there was no real villain.
Was it the kid? Was it Cable?
It was like Cable, we all knew was a good guy seeking justice. Fire Fist was an abused kid who was seeking justice. I guess the real evil guy here was the headmaster of the Essex Home for Mutant Rehabilitation, but he posed no real threat. Maybe it was the Juggernaut, but he was barely in the film and was more like a henchman than anything, which is weird.
And he was so fake that it was kind of hard to treat him as a serious character in the film, a serious entity.
Right. He didn't really feel like the Juggernaut. Yeah, he just felt fake. He didn't feel real.
Yeah.
Felt like pixels. He didn't, have the costume.
He was very rubbery.
Very rubbery, yeah. So despite this negative stuff, what really saved the film for me was its humor. Some of it didn't click, like all the Frozen and dubstep jokes, but most of it had me rolling.
Yeah, I did not get the dubstep jokes. But yeah, you're right, it was funny. The whole thing with like the baby legs and stuff like that.
That was
just when you think they couldn't top the baby hand. They totally did.
The whole Winnie the Poohing gag.
Yeah.
That was freaking great. I love that. And when he got up out of his seat to walk to Cable to shake his hand, and Weasel was like, "Oh, he's walking, he's doing it," and they played that music. I was laughing my ass off. I love the X-Men Mansion gags with him rolling around in Professor X's wheelchair, and the cameo by the main franchise X-Men characters,
which doesn't make sense with the timeline.
It doesn't, but they don't give a shit at this point.
Yeah.
But Beast was there. I saw Quicksilver. I saw Professor X. I saw Cyclops.
They were all there.
I think Storm was there. I didn't see Phoenix. Did I see Nightcrawler? I'll have to see the film again. I couldn't remember who I saw. It was really brief, but it was nice that they did that. I heard that they filmed that scene while filming the Dark Phoenix movie.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and then it was just kind of like inserted into there. I think the best joke was the X-Force, which was this incredibly like long setup to what is essentially a throwaway gag where the whole team dies.
I did not see that coming.
No, yeah. Well, because the marketing, not only did they set up a big chunk of film to this throwaway gag where they all die, they set up a lot of marketing to that throwaway gag, setting up your expectations for them to be this badass team that fights alongside Deadpool. And then we get the moment where Deadpool's like on the billboard and he's looking up and in the distance you just see all those parachutes just spiraling out of control. That visual gag right there was probably the best joke of the movie for me. I was dying laughing, like tears were streaming out. I was laughing just seeing that and seeing how each one died.
I'm gonna be honest, I was angry when that happened.
Really?
I was like, what? I felt sort of cheated. Like with the marketing and everything. I was like, I wanted to see the X-Force. And then that happened. And I was like, what? What?
Well, like when Bedlam got hit by the bus, I was kind of thinking, oh, just walk it off. He's a big guy. He'll probably be like, oh, that hurt. And then get up and walk. But then when Shatterstar started steering toward the helicopter and his hair was getting in his face and Deadpool's like, no, left. And he goes left and he's like, no, I meant stage left. And then he goes into the blades.
Yeah, I knew there was no coming back from that.
Yeah, the alien blood. God, it's such a great... And then Zeitgeist going into the wood chipper.
Oh, jeez.
I didn't know that Peter was going to die, though. That part was like, whoa. Like, I thought maybe he would be the only survivor since he landed safely and everything.
Right.
But yeah, he got the acid vomit spit up on him, and he died too.
Of course.
Yeah.
And then you have the Vanisher, which was another surprise. Another surprise cameo from Brad Pitt.
Yeah, that was fantastic.
Which is crazy, because he was rumored to be Cable for a while.
Right, yeah, and I'm kind of glad he didn't take the part, honestly, because there wasn't as much for him there as I thought there would be for the character.
Yeah.
And we'll get into that in the character breakdown, which we could get into now.
Yeah.
So, Wade Wilson / Deadpool, as you said earlier this episode, Ryan Reynolds embodies this character. So much so that when he does interviews and stuff, I feel like I'm looking more at Wade Wilson than the actor.
Yeah.
Just like with Robert Downey Jr. and with Hugh Jackman, he is the character. And I really love his arc in this film. In this one, he's striving to be a better person to reunite with his dead love.
Yeah.
It's deep stuff. And seeing how someone with his sense of humor handles such grief.
He's a great actor.
Is interesting. Yeah.
Yeah.
He knows how to be like super sad and depressed, but also engaging and entertaining.
Yeah. And he absolutely entertaining. But one of my favorite jokes in the whole movie was, when he sneaks into Blandal's apartment and he, grabs the bag of cocaine, shoves it under his mask, and then punches himself in the face. It's like, oh my gosh, dude, that was hilarious.
His delivery is perfect.
Yeah.
I can't say enough good things about the character of Deadpool as he's portrayed in these films, for sure.
No one else after this could ever be Deadpool. There's no way he could ever be replaced.
So, Deadpool, perfect. Nathan Summers / Cable was more generic in this film than I thought he'd be. He wasn't very fleshed out.
Yeah.
He just kind of like showed up and that was that. There was no mention of the techno-organic virus, although, we got to see it. There was no mention of what his powers were.
No.
There was no mention of his parents.
No.
And
no mention of how he even got the time travel technology.
Right, the time sliding devices. It's all very vague and somewhat one note because of that. But despite all of that, I think Brolin was still likable as the character. I think
he's a good actor.
He is. He did a great job for what he was given, and I hope he continues in the role.
Yeah.
But I could see why Brad Pitt passed on it now.
Yeah.
Because there wasn't much backstory or development to the character.
Josh Brolin, he's a fantastic actor. You look at films like No Country for Old Men or something like that. Old Boy, I hated that film actually, but he was good in it.
Okay.
I don't think he's good at improvisation. I remember seeing this like marketing bit where he and Ryan Reynolds had to like insult each other.
Yeah.
And Josh Brolin is just not a funny guy.
Really?
At all.
I thought he was kind of funny.
I didn't think so at all. He's very much a straight-laced kind of character.
Yeah.
And that's what Cable should be. You know?
Definitely. He's the straight man to Deadpool's
he's
funny
the
man.
foil. Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. And in a sense, I think because Josh Brolin isn't a comedian, it was sort of perfect casting for him. I think he did fine in the role. I think all the problems that stemmed from Cable were on the script, were on the page.
I hope whatever happens with the franchise, whether or not we get an X-Force sequel or what's going to happen there, I'm not quite sure. But I do hope we get more development with this character. And I kind of wish that we had done a dual episode with Cable before this, so people at least could have been, prepared with his backstory and stuff before going into the film, because I think that would have been helpful.
Yeah, I would have appreciated that for sure.
Yeah, our next episode after this episode is going to be a dual episode where we pit Cable against Booster Gold.
Yeah.
So
the only thing we really got from the character, Hope Summers was in this film, right?
Right. That was a nice little nod to the Messiah Complex arc from the X-Men comics, where Hope Summers is actually the first mutant born after the House of M decimation thing, and he travels from the future to rescue her and raise her as his adopted daughter. Anyway, yeah, more development on him would be great. Hopefully we get to see that. So let's get into Nina Thurman / Domino. I thought that Zazie Beetz as Domino was the breakout character of the film for me.
She was a lot better in the film than I thought she was going to be. I don't know what I was worried about from the trailers. It didn't sell me on the action or the fact that she could like go toe to toe with Ryan Reynolds' humor. But in the film, she worked perfectly. I loved the sort of like Rube Goldberg events that happened where things just worked in her favor. It was so interesting to see. I enjoyed it so much more than I thought I would.
Yeah, the way her powers were portrayed were pretty incredible. Though I have to say her subconscious telekinesis was a little heartless. And you can learn more about Domino in our dual episode where we pit her against Harley Quinn a few episodes back.
Yeah.
But I'm sure that a few people died in horrible car explosions just so that she could have a ramp to jump off of,
Right.
That's kind of heartless. She did have one awkward moment where she was arguing with Deadpool about whether or not good luck was a superpower. But other than that, I thought her comedic timing with Deadpool was pretty good.
Yeah, it was fine. It was fine. It worked.
Yeah, so
I didn't understand her whole destiny bringing her to the school or whatever what that was about. But
because she grew up in the Essex home for mutant rehabilitation, just like Fire Fist did. So that was her whole reason for signing up, which she wasn't sure about at the beginning. In the comics, she did grow up in a house like that. She grew up in what was called the Church of Sacred Heart, and she ended up escaping and run away. So I guess that's what happened in this movie.
I do have to say, because of her portrayal in this film, my favorite power that I would want to have was flight or maybe teleportation. But now it's good luck powers. I want that subconscious telepathy or telekinesis.
Does she seem a little overpowered now?
She was so overpowered, but in the most simplistic, plausible way. It was great. It was fantastic.
Yeah, it really was. I like the scene when she was fighting those guys in the orphanage.
Yeah.
And how they were killing themselves fighting her.
Right.
It was so fantastic. Yeah. All right, let's talk about Fire Fist, Russell Collins. He was different than any other superhero baddie that's ever been out there. I'm not so sure he was evil so much as misguided and in pain. He was a funny character. I liked how kind of brash he was, both in terms of standing up to the other prisoners and with his friendships. You do something nice for him, and he's like, "Oh, we're best friends. We're a great team. We're like thugs. We're like gangsters." I think in all, I liked him. I liked what Julian Dennison did with him, and he had little touches, like when he released the Juggernaut and he was walking away from Wade. He did that little invisible rope exit.
Yeah.
I thought that was a nice little touch. I don't know. I can't tell if he was a brilliant actor or if I had problems with his acting.
I had problems with it. Some things just didn't work for me. Like at the end where, he's in this rage and all of a sudden he just says, "Damn, it feels good to be a gangster."
Is that him being a bad actor, or is that him being a perfect actor portraying a kid who's in over his head who doesn't quite know what he's doing?
Is that the character? Is the kid kind of awkward?
I think he is.
I think you can make that argument, but I don't think it was intentional, maybe? That's a good question. Maybe it was. Maybe the director saw that and that was perfect. That's exactly what we're trying to portray with this character.
Because everywhere else, I thought he was spot on. Especially the emotional scenes where he's crying because Deadpool sacrificed himself for him and stuff like that. All that
those
stuff
were
was
fine. Those are great.
Believable to me.
Yeah, he could act. He could definitely act.
Yeah, I enjoyed what we got with him here. He made me laugh.
Maybe it was just too heartbreaking because, as a father, I'm just like, just get this kid some help, I don't want to see him, like, swearing and being the bad guy. Yeah. Maybe that's it. I don't know.
Let's talk about Colossus. I love Colossus.
He was my favorite character next to Deadpool in this film.
Yeah. I mean, in these movies, he's a little bit more of a caricature. Like, he's an exaggeration of the more heroic type superhero as seen through Deadpool's eyes.
Right.
But it's still mostly faithful to the character from the comics. And it's so great when you get X-Men characters that are portrayed faithfully in film, because it's rare in the X-Men franchise.
Yeah, you don't get more faithful than the Deadpool version of Colossus.
Yeah, definitely. It's this, or in the X-Men franchise, you get some non-Russian dude with 0 lines.
Right.
The special effects were great. The actor that does the voice and the mocap for him, really good.
I was worried that Cable was sort of going to supplant him as Deadpool's foil, but he didn't. Like, Colossus definitely stood out on his own. Cable was his own thing. It still managed to work.
Yeah, they're both kind of foils to Deadpool's humor, but Colossus is like the lawful good, and like Cable would be like the unlawful good, I guess. I forget. I don't know quite how to chart those guys on that moral spectrum. They were certainly different, very different characters.
And I love the fact that we got to see Colossus fight Juggernaut.
That was my favorite moment from the film. I've been waiting so long to see that.
Even in the animated series, like, did we ever see that?
I don't think so.
But it's like one of those things that, like, when you're kids and you're always talking like, who would win in a fight between Colossus and Juggernaut? Who's stronger? It was like that moment brought to life. It was, I guess, such like a feeling of like nostalgic glee.
Yeah. And how it started out with, Juggernaut just pounding on him, but then, Colossus decides to fight dirty and he starts pulling like these wrestling moves and he throws them into a bus, and then Juggernaut picks up the bus and hits Colossus, and it was all so fantastic. It was everything that I wanted to see. And actually, simultaneously during that scene, you had my second favorite moment of the film, which was the Deadpool Cable team up against the perverts, what they called them.
Yeah.
The choreography there, the way they were able to kind of like complement each other and like these like combo moves together, it was so great. That's something else that I've always wanted to see, is Deadpool and Cable fight together against a group of bad guys. So overall, I think that whole action set piece was a little bit disappointing, but again, it did have those two great moments.
Had its moments, yeah.
For sure.
Was Juggernaut a surprise to you?
No, I expected him. Let's get into Juggernaut. I was half expecting to see him, I guess, if I'm being honest, because we did kind of get a flash of him in one of the trailers, the top of his helmet.
Yeah.
So I thought he would show up. I was kind of disappointed by the fakery. I still don't think the character has been done justice yet 100% between this or the X-Men 3 version with Vinnie Jones.
Yeah.
I do think this version was better. Because
absolutely.
His lines were funny. It's been released that Ryan Reynolds did the facial mocap and the voice work for the character.
Yeah.
And his lines were like, I'm going to tear you in half, And then he does it. And then he's like, I'm going to stick you up his ass or something like that.
Yeah.
It's real simple stuff, but that's what you expect from, a big lug like the Juggernaut. And you believe him when he says it.
I loved finding out that Ryan Reynolds did the voice and facial mocap for that. Not that you could really see Juggernaut's face, but I remember in the credits, I was looking to see like who played who. And for Juggernaut, it said as himself. I was like, what?
Yeah.
What was that? And I told you that. I remember telling you that in the theaters. Then later on, we learned it was Ryan Reynolds. Funny little Easter egg there.
Yeah. Let's talk about Vanessa Carlyle. These are some of the lesser characters in the film now. Morena Baccarin was great again for what she had. She was the guiding force of the film.
Yeah.
I'd still love to see her as copycat one day, but I'm pretty sure that'll never happen as long as Mystique plays a huge role in the X-Men films. I'm really glad that she was brought back at the end of the movie.
I don't think I liked that at the end.
I didn't like the concept of it, but I like that we'll see her again.
It undoes the entire film.
You almost don't have a movie anymore.
Yeah.
Due to that mid-credits sequence.
I mean, it still doesn't change the fact that you still have Fire Fist killing Cable's family in the future, but it does kind of change Deadpool wanting to save that kid.
Right.
Or having reason to save that kid.
Right.
So I guess he never does.
Maybe it's just best not to think about it. Let's talk about X-Force, the characters. Not too much to talk about since they had such brief screen time.
Right.
Again, the deaths were hilarious. I'm surprised Peter died. I really thought he was going to turn out to be Pete Wisdom from the X-Force comics. I really liked Zeitgeist. I think he was my favorite out of those that died. he seemed like an actual character just in those few little moments that he had. And it really made me want to see more of him. When he was like, I can spit acidic vomit, you guys want to see? And they're like, no. And Deadpool's like, we've all been to Arby's. That was great.
Oh, jeez, about Arby's is so pissed off.
Yeah.
That was great. What was the name of the actor who played Shatterstar again?
I think it was like Louis Tan.
Yeah, Louis Tan. I feel so bad for that guy.
Yeah.
Because, he was almost Iron Fist in the Netflix television series.
Right.
And then finally lands this role in a big feature film.
Something worthy of his talents as, a skilled fighter and stuntman and stuff like that.
Right. Then he freaking dies right away. Dang it. That bummed me out.
Yeah, that's too bad.
Of all of them who died. Like, he was the one I was like, no.
Really?
Yeah. I figured Peter was going to die.
I never really liked Shatterstar, to be honest. So I was kind of glad he died. I was looking forward to seeing more of Bedlam.
I thought that they were using like these no-name characters to set up X-Force because they haven't been used before. And they use these no-name characters because they never planned on using them in the first place. It was hard to come to terms with that.
All right, let's move on to the X-Men characters, Negasonic Teenage Warhead, and apparently not Surge. We all thought that Surge was going to be in this movie, but it turns out it's Yukio, who has already had a role in one of the X-Men films. She was in the Wolverine movie.
Yeah, the one from Japan.
Yeah, I thought she was going to be Surge because she apparently had electricity powers.
Yeah.
But
Yukio was the one who saw people's futures?
Yeah, in the Wolverine movie.
Why would they replace her?
I don't know. They should have just kept her as Surge. But Surge's real name is Nariko.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, in this movie, she was Yukio. So it was almost like they combined the two characters, which is something that I hate when they do that.
Yeah.
Negasonic Teenage Warhead was kind of useless.
Yeah.
Like, those two characters were actually essentially pointless in this entire film. They didn't actually contribute to the plot in any way, except for that mid-credits scene where they fixed the time slider.
Right.
But you actually didn't even need to have them do that.
No.
So, I don't know. It's kind of a waste. Let's get into the story highlights.
Actually, real quick, there's two more characters I want to talk about really quick.
Okay.
TJ Miller as Weasel.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Even better in this film, I think, than the previous film.
I didn't think so.
When he gets captured by Cable and he's like, I'll tell you everything. He was like such a coward.
Oh, he did
to give up all the information.
I did like the joke he had with Dopinder where he was like, either vomit or don't.
Oh, and Dopinder was the other one I want to talk about. I did not like Dopinder in this film.
No?
No,
he was a little bit too creepy.
He was freaking dark. Really dark.
I don't know. I thought it was funny. He had some moments where I thought he kind of got a little weird. Not funny weird, but just weird.
Yeah.
But overall, I thought he was pretty funny.
He was supposed to be so charming, like from the first film. And in this film, it just, completely soured.
Yeah. But all right, story highlights. Yeah, we're not doing the complete story breakdown anymore because we kind of came to the determination that doesn't really make sense to do in a review.
Yeah.
We think it also ruins it for people who actually do listen to this stuff without seeing the movie. So we're just going to talk about the highlights of the film.
I don't want to do any more reviews that are as long as the movie.
So the whole first part of the film with Vanessa's death, I want to talk about how emotional that was. When she dies and Wade Wilson kneels down to her, all the audio is cut from the film. There's just this kind of slight ringing, and you see him mouthing the words like, please no, I'm sorry, things like that.
Yeah.
That stuff like really pulled at the heartstrings. It kind of
so
like
tragic.
Up.
So unbelievably tragic.
Yeah.
They were just talking about having, starting a family like 10 seconds earlier, and then that happens, and not only does it happen, but he's like responsible in a way for it happening.
Yeah, because he didn't get the guy earlier on that day. And then when he jumps out the window and he goes after the guy and he catches up with him and he finally gets him and then he gives him a hug, I was so confused as to what was going on there. Like, I knew he was emotional and stuff, and I thought maybe he was just seeking comfort from anyone.
Yeah.
But then you just find out that he wanted to die. He did not want to live in a world without Vanessa. So he hugged him and then took a step out into oncoming traffic to kill himself and the guy.
Yeah.
And there was so much just weight in that action. I thought it was going to bog down the whole rest of the film. Like, even during the credits, they were funny, but I found myself having a hard time laughing.
Yeah.
Because of how deep that action was. You never see anything like that.
Yeah. I loved that credits bit.
Yes, that was fantastic. I really like that. Just because of the homage to the Bond films.
Yeah.
And it was done so well visually, but also, the credits, how they read.
In the first film, the writers were the real heroes. And in this film, the writers were the real villains because they killed his girl.
Yeah, that was pretty good. But, and then the credits end, and then you get back into where he's talking to Weasel, and, you still have some more emotional moments where you could tell that he's just been drained, and he's like, I didn't just love her, I liked her. And then you get some funny gags in there where, like, he pisses himself and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But, like, even into the X-Mansion, where Colossus is trying to, like, motivate him, and he gets up out of the chair, and he's like, I killed all the men responsible except for me. We were going to start a family. Yeah. Ryan Reynolds is not just a great comedian, he's such a great dramatic actor. All those moments right there had way more depth than I ever thought a Deadpool film would ever have.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed all that stuff. And then it gets back into the funny stuff, but I'm glad that they included
it. Had a solid foundation, right, for the film.
Did.
And, with Vanessa, him still being able to contact Vanessa whenever he died and stuff like that. What happened at the beginning, like, I never forgot it throughout the film. Like, it sort of moved on, but, like, it was still there for me. Because how could it not be? It was so powerful.
Right. Let's talk about some of the cameos. We've already talked about some of them, but I think the only one that we missed was Matt Damon and Alan Tudyk as the rednecks.
What?
Talking about wiping your ass with baby wipes instead of toilet paper.
I did not know that was them.
It almost ruins the point of a stunt cameo like that when you don't recognize the actors in it. And now, Alan Tudyk was easy to recognize, but Matt Damon was pretty hard to recognize. They should have made it a little bit more apparent that he was in the film.
Yeah.
But
geez, Matt Damon will cameo in anything.
Yeah, he cameoed in Thor Ragnarok, and I'm kind of hoping that he turns out to be like, I don't know, the Chameleon or something like that. Like the Spider-Man bad guy who just takes on all these different forms. And like, I hope he's like the new Stan Lee kind of.
No, don't do that to Matt Damon.
Why?
Save him for the DC universe.
Ugh, he'll never do that. The prison fight, Deadpool versus Cable scene.
Underwhelming.
For sure. I thought it was going to be a little bit more epic than that. I think a lot of it has to do with the direction of the action itself. It wasn't nearly as kinetic as we've come to know Deadpool's action scenes, especially from the first film. It was that scene that made me think that Tim Miller is actually a much better action director than David Leitch.
Yeah. Some of the editing was off, especially with like Josh Brolin. I could totally tell that he was throwing stuntmen and stuff like that. It didn't seem real.
Yeah, it was hard to tell geographically where you were in the prison at any given point in time. Like, I kind of feel like, there were some moments that were cut that kind of made it a little bit confusing.
Yeah.
And it's surprising because David Leitch's other stuff, like John Wick and Atomic Blonde, the action in that is so incredible, and it just wasn't as hard-hitting in this one. It's surprising.
The prison scene wasn't the only fight or action scene where I thought the editing was off. Like, when they were in the prisoner transport trailer, there were some moments that just didn't flow well together.
Let's talk about that convoy scene. Even though it was a little bit choppy, I think overall it was probably the best action scene of the whole movie.
Yeah, it was, starting off with the X-Force jumping out of the plane and all the way to the end when you get the Juggernaut reveal. It was a good time.
I like the Deadpool and Cable fight on the convoy. I think that was some of the better choreography of the film, and it was funny too, like when Cable shot Black Tom Cassidy. He was like, "You shot Black Tom Cassidy, you racist!" Yeah. All of those Black Tom Cassidy jokes were just gold, like when he introduced himself. He was like, "I'm Black Tom Cassidy." He was like, "I'm White Wade Wilson." What's your superpower? Cultural appropriation? It was great.
I guess some people knew right away that Juggernaut was going to be in the film because Black Tom Cassidy was cast. I didn't know he was cast.
I didn't know he was
cast. But that would have
either.
been a huge ringing bell if I would have known that he was cast, that Juggernaut was going to be in the film.
Right. One of the remaining highlights for me, since we have already gone over the orphanage fight, I think, was the mid-credits scene where he goes back in time and he saves Vanessa, he saves X-Force, or maybe just Peter, I don't know.
Yeah.
He kills the Deadpool from X-Men Origins Wolverine.
Right.
That was pretty good. And then he kills Ryan Reynolds.
That was hilarious.
I was really hoping that we were going to get a Hugh Jackman cameo in this. We didn't, but we kind of did.
Sort of did.
It was cool. I was really glad that they included that part because I just really hate that X-Men Origins Wolverine version of the character.
Yeah, I've heard the writers say that all of those end credit scenes are in continuity.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So that's funny. I had heard before I saw the film that he was going to do some time traveling stuff at the end credits.
Yeah.
But what I had pictured was way different than what we got. So I was a little bit disappointed because I thought we were going to see stuff like
throughout history,
Deadpool signing the Declaration of Independence and writing a Tyrannosaurus Rex and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But it was still good. The stuff that they did have still made me laugh. So
Yeah.
And the last thing we should talk about, since this is a Marvel and DC podcast, are the DC references. What did you think of the DC references? Like,
well, all the Green Lantern ones. Everyone gets to shit on Green Lantern, apparently, both Marvel and DC.
Yeah.
I don't know.
When Cable was fighting Deadpool in the prison scene, he's like, "Who are you?" And he's like, "I'm Batman," without a wink or a smile or anything like that. I thought that was pretty funny. And then, of course, he says, "Man, you're dark. Are you sure you're not from the DC universe?" So...
You know how they say no publicity is bad publicity? Any chance to get the DC name out there, just get people familiar with it, I guess I'm okay with.
Yeah, it maintains the rivalry, kind of. And I think as long as there is a rivalry, there will be DC fans no matter how good Marvel is, because there will always be contrarians. So,
yeah. People who aren't sheep.
Shut up. All right, that does it for the Deadpool 2 review. Overall, I really enjoyed it. I thought it was good. I didn't think it was as great as the first one, which we gave 4 stars. So I'm going to go ahead and give this one 3.5 stars.
Yeah, I would give it the same rating, 3.5 stars.
Yeah, 3.5 out of 5, which is not bad. You know, it's only 1.5 stars away from a perfect score. And I'll definitely see it again in theaters. So looking forward to that. And if you guys had different views of the film, go ahead and let us know by writing into us on our social media platforms on Facebook or Twitter or Instagram by doing a search for Dynamic Duel Podcast. Or you could email us your thoughts at dynamicduelpodcast@gmail.com. And we'll go ahead and address that in our next episode.
Yeah, our next episode is going to be, as we teased earlier, a duel episode with Booster Gold versus Cable. And if you're not familiar with Booster Gold...
He's another time-traveling hero.
Yeah, you know, with force fields and the works. I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of people didn't know about him, but you will after this next episode.
If you know who Blue Beetle is, you might know who Booster Gold is because they team up a lot.
Yeah, they did back in the 90s and 80s and 90s.
Yeah. So please subscribe to the podcast. Review us, if possible, on Podchaser especially, because they do have that promotion going on right now where if you do review an episode and then post it to social media and tag Podchaser, you are in the running to win a $100 pair of headphones.
Yeah.
Go ahead and tell your friends about the podcast if you know any Marvel and DC fans that might enjoy this. Go ahead and visit dynamicduel.com to get links to all of our social media accounts as well as our merch store.
Yeah, I just uploaded redesigns for the Anatomy of a Marvel fan t-shirts and Anatomy of a DC fan t-shirts, including female versions, colored versions. So if you're a lady fan of the comics or of our podcast listening to this, definitely check that out. You might be interested.
Yeah, it's a great design for sure. Don't forget you can join our Patreon by going to patreon.com/dynamicduel and get access to all the bonus episodes that we do, including this Thursday's match between Samus Aran and Master Chief. And I think that does it for the episode. So we'll see you guys next week.
Up and away.
True believers.